Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Really Charlie podcast. Today's guest is a fascinating friend of mine. And I'm so happy to have him. I've been waiting for this podcast for a few days now. Once the guest, who is Steve Pemberton, said yes, I was all excited and couldn't wait to have him on here. So without further ado, Stephen Pemberton.
Hey Charlie, how are you?
How you doing, man? Nice to see
Good,
you.
man. I'm doing better than that. Now I'm spending a little bit of time with you.
That's good. That's good, man. I always a pleasure since the first day I met you in the halls of New Bedford High School.
Yeah.
And the first impressions meant a lot, and the first thing I knew about you is that you were a dude always smiling, always laughing. I can't even remember your friends' names, all the guys that you were with, but it was that same two or three people that you were with, hanging out. Proud of you. That's the first thing. I'm proud of you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I really do. I appreciate that, and I'm proud of you.
Thank you very much.
I've followed you, from a distance over the years, and so I know that you've been on the move as always. That's the class, right?
Yes.
Jack. Hey, man.
It's Jack, my man Jack, Big Jack, the gentle giant, man.
Oh yeah.
He's still one of the best linemen I ever met, man. I love him, man.
Yeah.
Love being his teammate and a better friend. I love being his friend, man.
Oh yeah. In fact, I was telling my son, my younger son, we're in Illinois, and my younger son is he's one of the top running backs in Illinois, and one of the top players. And I said, well, there's a couple of guys I went to high school with who you would have loved to run behind that fellas.
Oh yeah, definitely.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing good things. I see your post. Definitely very, very happy for you, and very impressed with the family that you made. And salutes to you and your wife. You guys appearances seem real good to me. And your book, I didn't realize that I knew a chance in the world. I knew of that one always since it first came out.
Yeah.
I've noticed that you have a children's version, but I don't know how I missed the Lighthouse Effect. Something?
Yeah, you have not. Actually, it will be out in the fall.
Okay, I noticed that today. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll talk about a chance in the world or whatever else is on your mind. But the Lighthouse Effect. I really wanted to write about these people who I met along my own life journey, who were like lighthouses to me. Some I met as a young boy, others later on in life. But there was something about their story that I found instructive, illuminating, and something that we could all use in this day and age. I think we're too quick to call people stationed, quote unquote, above us as heroes, when in fact, the real heroes are the people, us everyday people. We get up, we take care of our families, we contribute to our community, we deliver mail and drive your kids to school, check you in at the doctor's office. And I think a lot of that, Charlie, it came from growing up in New Bedford. And I was explaining to somebody that I did not grow up in a place where people wore, suit and ties to go to work. That wasn't, that was not what I was around. So the work ethic, the integrity, that's what I was around. And so as life moved on, I still gravitate to those people. because I realized that's where the real wisdom is.
It's so true. And we look at people that are, as you said, above us, and everything that you mentioned, they have no clue about doing those things, whether it's working for a living or just speaking with people. They kind of brush off things or delegate things for someone else to do, an assistant, a relative, or somebody to kind of, all right, go talk to Steve. Go talk to Steve.
Yeah.
Have them do that. No, you talk to Steve. Have a conversation. But the down, the grown, the home folks, I truly, truly love, and some of the most inspirational people in my life have come from my hometown. And
Yep.
and there's other people, as you go to college and travel around the country, you meet other people and build some bonds, some relationships and stuff like that, and then they become mentors. But the true blue mentors of my life have come right from this city, this small little city we have here.
Yeah, I mean, I've traveled a lot of places all over the world. I still have never encountered another place that has ever said to me, that reminds me of New Bedford. There's no place that reminds you of New Bedford. It's a combination of the history, being the center of the abolitionist movement and the Underground Railroad, all run into the NAACP. Niagara movement was founded there. It has this history that you would liken to a big city.
Yes.
And it's not, obviously. And where it sits on the water, I mean, it's a real gem. And I think that beyond a shadow of a doubt, as life moved on, I would still say our classmates, man, they're still amongst the best people I have ever met in my life.
So true.
I mean, and I still remember it. And so a lot of our classmates, they've gone on to be cops, like Mike Jesus, firefighters, just kind of people you look back on, you go, man, those are just some of the most special people that I ever encountered. So I still remember them. I still remember whether that was J.D. McKenna, who we lost recently.
Yeah, may he rest in peace.
Yeah. But those were the guys that I was around. In fact, Mike Jesus and I, we were seniors. Our class mascot was the animal from Sesame Street. And Mike and I made T-shirts, and we were selling them. And and I remember the principal getting really upset with us. Why would you guys choose an animal? Called the animal for your mascot. We didn't mean anything by it, but yeah. So so just special, special times, man. Some really, really good people.
I remember McKenna dressing up in a toga. Yeah, dressing around and very proud of it,
Oh yeah, but JD was, JD had a security about himself, and I lived a block away from JD, so I grew up, I knew him, like long before we got to high school, so I knew him already, knew what a great baseball player he was, for example, and so as the years move on, you still remember. I've told my three children, I've said more than one occasion, like if you wind up having the kind of high school experience that I did, and knowing the kind of people and meeting the kind of people that I did, you do half of that, then you're going to love your high school years.
Exactly.
And that's what they've enjoyed. Now, my oldest son, he's at Boston College now.
Wow.
But he had a great experience at his high school. His younger brother's having a great experience at his high school. Our daughter, Kennedy, is having a great experience in high school. But my foundation of it was certainly what I enjoyed at New Bedford High. I mean, certainly the teachers, were just incredibly special, to me. And again, you still remember them all. And in that class, I think a lot of those relationships have stayed connected. Peter Armanetti, who played basketball, called me about a year and a half ago, wanted my opinion on something he was working on. And he and I were still commiserating. Jack Gia, actually, he and I and Tony Gomes and Mike Jesus, the statute of limitations is up on this. So we won't get in trouble. But the four of us, our senior year, and I got caught. I got caught because one of my teachers, she dimed me out, Charlie. She dimed me out. And so, yeah, special time.
Someone asked, what's the best way to purchase these books? And, you want me to answer that or you want to answer it?
I'll answer it. Amazon is the easiest way. Okay. The Lighthouse Effect and A Chance in the World, the Young Reader version, both of them are available on Amazon. The Lighthouse Effect's not out until the fall, but A Chance in the World, the Young Reader version, is going to be out in about 3 weeks or so. But if you order it now, and it'll show up in the mail or e-reader. And it's really, much of that is located in New Bedford. I get to share some stories that I did not in the trade version. That is, on the background here.
Okay. The title Lighthouse Effect, does that come from New Bedford or Westport? Because I know you were fascinated with the water in both locations.
Oh yeah.
And able to see the lighthouses from both beaches or Land's End, as I call. And where did that come from?
Certainly it came from seeing lighthouses as a young boy.
Okay.
What they symbolize to me, because if lighthouses are probably the most selfless structure that humankind has ever created, because it serves no purpose other than to be of service to others.
Yes.
You can't pay a lighthouse. It doesn't ask for any rewards, and it doesn't look for recognition. It doesn't gloat. It doesn't do anything other than try to fulfill its mission, which is singular in nature. Mm-hmm. Always to try to protect the journey of the traveler. Exactly. There are roughly 22,900 lighthouses across the world. And there's this magnificent history to them as well. As a structure, in a brutally unforgiving world that is the sea, and it is a flat world. But the lighthouse is the only vertical structure that you'll find in that horizontal world. Mm-hmm. And it is incredibly resilient, too. Wherever you see a lighthouse, there's danger. Lighthouses don't exist in places where it's comfortable, because the sea is not comfortable. We know that growing up in New Bedford.
Yes.
But the lighthouse stands there, right, despite it all. And my point was that though we don't technically need lighthouses anymore, the structures themselves, we don't need them. But they still call to us in a way, because the best attributes of the lighthouse are also the best attributes of humankind. To be selfless, to be noble, to be dignified, to protect one another, to not judge one another. Because when a lighthouse encounters you in the middle of a storm, it doesn't ask you what race you are, how you feel about a social issue, who you voted for. Lighthouse does not care about any of that. Mm-hmm. It says, I see the difficulty that you're in, and it simply says, come this way, because this way is the way to safety. And these 10 people I'm writing about, they reflect those things too. Whether it was John Sykes, former New Bedford High teacher who took me in, as you know, just 3 days mm-hmm. after Christmas when I had nowhere to go, to a kind neighbor who brought me books. I'm writing about her. I'm writing about a Vietnam era veteran whose helicopter went down behind enemy lines and found his way to safety. I'm writing about a woman I met on a train. Right at the time I was writing about my parents, she had just had a reunion with her father, who
Wow.
she had never met. I just bumped into her, a mutual friend, and introduced us. And she told me about her husband and kids, and I told her about my wife and kids. And my friend just happened to say, "Hey, Steve's writing a book." She's like, "Well, what's it about?" Right? So these everyday conversations that are all around you, and if you pay attention, people all have something to offer us, right? That you can, in any given moment, in any given day, you can both need a lighthouse and you can be a lighthouse to anyone.
Exactly.
You don't need degrees, you don't need extra certification, don't need to have a lot of money or a big title or have a big social media following. You just have to care about protecting someone's journey.
I love it. I love it. That's perfect. It's almost, my admiration, as I do my writing, it's always near the beach, or it's thinking about the beach. And Butler's Flats is definitely one of those locations where I sit on the wall and I might write a few things. Lighthouses are definitely something that I really, really love. And I'm gonna steal your quote because that's the best way of looking at it. Thinking about everything that you just said, it's almost perfect for me. I got a comment here from Nathan Victor, and he says, "Not too many people know Steve is responsible for my very successful live television career. Excuse me. Without him, it would not have been possible. I did not listen to him." Let me put this on the screen. I'm going to look over here. So I did not listen to him as a kid, but I learned the hard way to not only respect him, but he later became a quality friend as well. And Nathan is as a go-getter. That dude is committed to, he definitely, his story is very impressive. I had him on the podcast a couple of weeks back, and I definitely enjoyed his podcast. I have listened to it about 3 times already, only because he's inspirational.
He is. He absolutely is. And he said that that he didn't listen to me. I don't know about that. I mean, people don't always hear you, but it doesn't mean that they're not listening. And the distinction between the two is that I hear what you're saying, but I don't really listen until later on in life, right? But Nathan's a good example of what I'm talking about, right? Because seeing what he endured medically. Now, I appreciate his sentiments about me, and I'm looking at him, Charlie, like, man, what planet does a man like that come from?
True.
Like, you are clearly from some higher evolved species on another planet, and you just come here on Earth, to kind of hang with us for a little bit.
Yeah,
kind of show us how it's done, right? But Nathan's a really good example of what I mean, because if you pass him in the street, you wouldn't know that there's this whole other dimension of his life that is not only inspiring to you, but is instructive to you. You can learn something from him. And though, there aren't, streets named after him, or, he's not famous, that's kind of secondary point, because we're seeing where, fame and ego and all that gets you, right? We see what that has done to the country, especially the last few years. And that was, certainly one of the biggest takeaways I had when I was running for Senate. Was exactly that. Like, I just remember being in a lot of campaign stops and rallies and meeting people and thinking, yeah, this is wrong, right? This is wrong. These are the people actually who need to be listened to a lot more than they are, as opposed to some of these other, other things that I think we see unfolding.
So true. I mean, when you announced that you were running, I was like, yes, no hesitation whatsoever. Said, I'm going to do whatever I can for him. and then it went in the direction that it went to, and then you made another decision to not to continue. But I just want to let you know that I was ready, and a whole lot of other people are ready.
Yeah.
And even with your decision, the final decision came down, we were still ready for you. We're still saying, hey, all right, we can respect that. We all we got, as much as I thought and knew that you could be a leader that we can stand behind, I'm also going to follow you when you decide to step back and do something else. So just to let you know that I was ready for you. I definitely was ready for you.
I appreciate that. And then some. I mean, I thought, and in all honesty, that was one of the things I learned, from the race, that it would have been a formidable candidacy. But in all honesty, when Joe Kennedy decided to violate the rules of convention and jump in, it made it very, very difficult for me. And so, but that race, in all honesty, unfolded the way it should have, with Ed Markey winning, who I'm happy to support. But you learned, Charlie, how coming from a community like New Bedford, in growing up the way that I did, you do have a different perspective of the world. You absolutely do.
Yes.
Because you don't walk through the world with privilege and entitlement around you. It's more of a grit and a grind. And so a lot of the relentlessness that I have comes from New Bedford.
Yes.
It comes from. I get asked that all the time. And to me, it's like, well, if you ever go visit where I'm from, you'd go, oh, okay, I get it now. I kind of make sense. Let me bring you to, the fishing docks, and bring you to Monty's Park, and bring you to Buttonwood Park, right? And you go, oh, okay, so this is where where it comes from. And so a lot of us who grew up like that, we applied in different directions, right? But it's the same kind of thread. It's the same kind of thread that it goes through all of us. So, and in fact, growing up in that foster home the way that I did, it was really the community, it was the village that is New Bedford that actually wound up really protecting me from all of that, because people who were there, whether it was John Sykes, who I talked about earlier, or Claire Levin, the neighbor. I remember Mr. Mead, the mailman, who would kind of, wink at me when he was delivering mail, through the neighborhood. I wound up going to Boston College because Larry Finnerty, my guidance counselor, when I was in the 7th grade, handed me a brochure and said, "You're going to go to college." I was like, man, what's college? I didn't even know what it was. Right, but he put that lighthouse in front of me, and I started navigating it. Right, I just started navigating it, and probably the biggest person, in my early years, had such an effect on me was Ruby Doughton.
Yes,
Ruby, she pointed her light right at me, and there was no escaping her. By the way, when Ruby pointed her light at you and said, "I see not the circumstances of your life, but its possibilities," you couldn't escape it, even if you didn't see it yourself.
True.
And so I think, probably still trying to live up to that light that she put on me. And in the young reader version, I write about meeting her for the first time, something really special she did when I was in elementary school that I never, ever forgot. I never forgot it. And I wound up, being able to write about it. Yeah.
I can't wait to get that book, put it on my shelf. A lot of my reading comes from, my Kindle, but I always get a hard copy. I always get a paperback or hardcover to put in my house, to put on the shelf. Yeah. To me, that's very important. And especially just for my family, my grandkids, everyone to see that there are books in the house that, they can, because reading is very, very, very important. And
Power, you know.
yes,
I try to tell young children all the time that reading will allow you to be comfortable in any room. That you feel like you belong. And I've been everywhere, right? From the halls of Hollywood to the White House. Worked with different administrations. Never felt out of place. Never felt like I didn't belong there. But it was because of how much reading gave me. And those, I think, who were instilling that in me left quite an impression on me. I was too young to really articulate how important those people were.
true.
You get a little bit older now, and so reading is try to tell all young people that. That's why I wrote the young reader version of the book. Charlie, had I read a story like mine when I was in the 4th, 5th grade, or even 7th or 8th grade, I would have not felt so alone. And I would have said, okay, I'm in a storm here. That's not of my doing, but I can get out of this. Actually, it doesn't have to always be this way. And so I think I came to that, probably by accident. I think we can be more purposeful about it. And I think that's generally true of education.
Mr. Sykes was definitely something, a man that I was very fascinated to see in your book, and I knew who he was. And you paint a great picture of him, and the story gives a very lucid picture of that man. And I said, wow, nobody could explain it any better or bring it out any better than someone that's close to him. And your book really shows how close you are or was to him and how he was to you.
He, in fact, he's the first chapter in The Lighthouse Effect. I write about his story. And, I lost him in January.
Yes.
Lost Ruby in November and him in January. So it's been a hard few months, to be honest, because it's a different world without them in it. I always felt that I've always appreciated the public's embrace of A Chance in the World. Like that's been special to me to watch that. But I always saw it as more of a tribute, actually, to the people who touched me. I was trying to write about them that way. I was trying to write about Ruby that way, and Claire Levin that way, and John that way. But this time around, I get to say it more directly, and what I shared about John's life, so that we can all know that there really are no accidents. So John graduated from New Bedford High School, went to Bridgewater, got a teaching degree, was teaching. And, by his mid-20s, he was, hey, I'm teaching. And, but then I think he started settling into a routine, and he was wondering, like, am I having any impact? So he quit teaching and said, I'm going to go on an adventure. And so he goes out to California to become a ski instructor. And he's doing that for a little while. And when I was interviewing him for the book, he described to me, he said, he goes, it was early in the morning. And he says, I'm on top of this really cold mountain and I'm making snow. I'm on top of the mountain, but I can look down into a valley. When I look down into the valley, he said, I see this school bus and I'm kind of watching it go through the neighborhood and pick up kids. And he said, he goes, I'm thinking to myself, I'm not supposed to be up here making snow. I'm supposed to be down there impacting lives.
Exactly.
So he comes back to New Bedford and decides to become a teacher and a counselor in the Upward Bound program that I would join a year later. And lest any of us doubt the impact of small things that we say and do, the effect that they have. When I was seated across from my social worker 3 days after Christmas, and I literally had nowhere to go. I mean, I'd been there all day.
Yep.
And I'm watching my social worker, Mike Sylvia, another eminently good man. And he was in that office calling families, trying to get them to take me in. And at one point, and just out of pure desperation, he says, well, hey, do you know anybody? The only reason I thought of John was because of something I overheard him say about me that he didn't know that I heard. And lo and behold, as fate would have it, he was in his office. He was in the Upward Bound office and took my call.
Wow.
Telling the story of his life has been very special, to me. My only regret, Charlie, is I sure do wish, that he was here to see the world embrace him again, because I really think the world will when they read his story in The Lighthouse Effect.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that. Mrs. Levin, definitely someone else that I glued in the book, and I actually just said I could see that, I could picture that.
Yeah.
And then especially being in that same area.
Yes.
And hanging out there and seeing it. So now I'm getting a great visual of how that all happened. And and as I'm reading the book, and today I said, you know what, I'm gonna go back over there. I haven't been over there in a while. I've been around the area, but never back to that intersection. So I went back over there.
Yeah.
And I got another visual. And so now as things go on and move along in A Chance in the World, now I'm actually, all right, that's what he's talking about in this chapter, that chapter. Right. Now I see, and it was like I actually wish that I had read the book right there at the intersection, the whole entire book,
Yeah.
And
well, people actually, this will blow you away, man. People come to New Bedford and they take tours of the area that I wrote, all the areas that I wrote about.
Wow.
They go to City Hall. They take pictures. They send these things on social media. And so they take pictures of the Whalens Memorial in front of the New Bedford Public Library. They see the proximity between City Hall and the New Bedford Public Library. They go visit the neighborhood because Arnold Street is, there, and you can kind of see where Sunnybrook Farm. I think there's still a convenience store there. You can see the wall where so that to me, man, has been a real thrill to see people do that. But it also, I remember when I was writing it, and I just had a rule about how I was writing. And I remember saying, do not, and this is generally true when you're writing, Charlie, as you well know, don't write anything that you cannot prove. And don't write anything that you cannot defend.
True.
So that for me was like my always. Now, as it turned out, I was really writing A Chance in the World for my children, because my oldest son was asking me, "Where's I see Mom's mom and Mom's dad, but I don't see yours, and you've never talked about it." That's how I was writing the book. And what I thought it was going to be was like this family history that would kind of sit on the wall. So my relentless pursuit of the truth was for them. It didn't matter what the world thought about it. It was more, hey, they're going to read this, and they know, hey, this is what Dad, came from. But the fact that it has impacted so many other people's lives, that people have adopted children because of the book. They've become foster parents. They become court-appointed special advocates. They've reconciled with their family members. They found family members. I mean, I wasn't trying to do any of that. To me, when it arrived in the mail, I said, great, I'm glad I did that. And I was moving on with my life. And sure enough, just wave after wave, and it happens I'm not exaggerating, every day, whether it's because of the book or the movie, I hear from somebody in some part of the world. And Charlie, they all say the same kind of thing, which is this. I don't have the exact same story as you, but I have a similar chapter. And that's
so
true for all of us, right?
Yes.
We all have similar chapters, regardless of your race, your gender, your generation, your life experience. You spend enough time and sit down with somebody and break bread with them. You learn that. You learn that we all have similar chapters. There are differences, of course, there are. The problem in America today is that we think that those differences are the story. That's not the story. It's the commonality that's the story.
So true. So true. The I got inspired today, and I sent you something that I wrote. And I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it was a little poem that I wrote, and it's titled just like your book is. And I just wrote from what I read and what I felt as I was going through it. And I just said, I got to write something right now. I can't just put this on hold. And so I end up writing what I did. And so I just want to let you know that even though you know you're inspiring people to do things, you know, whether it's adding to their family or doing a career move in counseling and social work and stuff, you inspired me to write something today, and I really appreciate that.
I'm honored by that, man. I'm so glad that that's been the case for so many others too. Because isn't that the point of it all? You know, you don't. I don't think you don't write, and authors certainly don't write for money. You know, anybody who thinks that, you know, my name's on a book, you make a lot of money. They need to unpack the details of who really makes the money in the writing world. And it's the publisher, by the way. You get to J.K. Rowling's level, that's different, right? No, authors don't make money on books. No. Believe me, those economics don't work. You have another reason for it. And that reason's got to be that you're trying to impact the world. Had I known how important my story was going to be and my journey was going to be, I would have written it a lot sooner, actually. And in all candor, I probably wouldn't have written it at all had it not been for the conversation with our son Quinn. I mean, he was really, you know, the catalyst. I see a couple of questions that are coming through, and I lived on the first floor in the house on Arnold Street, and I was there for 11 years. Is my length of time there, and it was a long 11 years, man. I can tell you that much. It was hard.
Yeah.
You know? Sorry, my daughter is just pinging me. So, Daddy, that's Daddy's girl right there, Charlie.
Nice.
In fact, I just dropped her off from getting her license. So she has her license. She's a driver.
Wow.
Today, you know.
I remember when.
Yeah, don't we all? No, you know, I'll tell you though that you know, when I was thinking about everything that I've done, actually my whole career trajectory, really learned and went back to a lot of those lessons from my time. I worked in the Upward Bound program, you know, for a while. That was very special to me. You know, the kids that I encountered who are now all, you know, their families of their own and well into their professional career, whether it's Tara Centeo or Corey Garcia, Tyson Rose, Eden Soares, Matt Bagarce. I mean, all these kids who I was kind of like their, you know, I guess I was their mentor. Nathan Victor, who joined us earlier.
Corey's next.
Oh man, you're gonna be in for a thrill with that guy. He and I joke because we're part of the Change Your Last Name Club. So he changed his answer about that. But yeah, Corey's one of my all-time favorite people. He was actually in my wedding when I was married. But that was something Ruby instilled in me. I mean, Ruby made it pretty clear to me that I was not here, to serve myself.
Mm-hmm.
That this was, that's not about ego, and it's not about, popularity. Your life is to be measured. She was like clear with me about this. Your life is to be measured by what impact you're going to have on other people. That's all she really cared about. And I think when you see somebody who had the respect and regard that she did, and you could see it, you could see, and you could understand why. And she was tough too, especially, they tried to cut her budget. She wasn't having that.
No.
And, but I think about, the lessons of leadership, actually. And if you have people like John Sykes and Ruby Doughton and Claire Levin and my social worker, Mike Sylvia, and another social worker, Heather Pope, a Larry Finnerty, Bob Parker. I'm just thinking about, if you had those kinds of people in the way that they thought and the way they moved through the world, society would be a kinder place, actually. And by the way, it's not, because they have this, there's an element of the world that is idealistic, but they've also been through some struggle. They see the world the way that they do through a lens of optimism, because of the struggles that they've had, and yet they still give forward. And I'd be remiss too if I didn't talk about certainly what's unfolded after the book. I mean, I met the Pemberton family, my father's brothers and sisters, in the early '90s. For the most part, and, strange when you walk into a room, man, and you see people who look like you, and you've never met them before.
So true.
And but I also learned too that family is not just what you're born into, Charlie. It's also who you find along the way.
Exactly.
George Carmo, for example, Russell Almeida, I met later on in life. They're close friends of my father's, and they embraced me, the way that you would have hoped that you'd be embraced, right, by family.
So true.
That's what they are. So my kids actually, Russell passed away, but I still remember George and Russell coming up to the Boston area to help me move. Just that kind of just good people, man. Good people.
Yeah, he was a good man. I definitely. I actually wanted to interview him for my book for Andre McCoy, and I didn't get that opportunity to. And in fact, I'm trying to revise that book. I see so many editing mistakes in it. I want to kind of do it over and maybe have someone else do it for me. So,
you're never gonna, man. You're always gonna want to edit your book. I mean, because that's how poets are, right? Never ever think it's perfect. Writers are like that. They're never satisfied. You'll always want to tinker. I mean, and certainly there's things you go back and you look at and you go, that detail is off. That detail's right. I mean, all writers do that. But the spirit of them are nevertheless there. And Russell was the one who set a lot of this in motion, because I remember I was working in Upward Bound, and this was literally an argument he and I were having. But it was a polite one. It was a respectful one. He's my elder, right? You're always going to respect your elder.
True.
And so I remember asking Ruby, hey, I had heard the story about Kenny Pemberton being my father. I had done some sleuthing when I was a young boy, saw his picture. To me, we looked so different, because his picture was grainy, black and white. And I said, yeah, that's not my father. I was about 10, 11 years old when I figured that out. Well, you fast forward 12 years later, I graduated from college. I'm working at the Town program. And I said to Ruby, hey, I'd like to find out who my father is. Ruby did not know her father.
Okay. Wow.
And so she said to me, well, there's just some things maybe you're not meant to know. And I said, I'm not going to accept that. And she ever let me and say, yeah, that's why you are the way you are, right?
So true.
She knew Russell. And I still remember some of the kids in the Upward Bound program that I mentioned. So Russell came in to talk to the Upward Bound program during the summer session.
Mm-hmm.
He and Ruby were very close. And so the kids were in another part. So all the kids were there, and three of them come find me. Corey, who you Tara Centeo, and Tyson. I think I was on a break, and they came find me and said, "No, this man knew your father, and he wants to meet you." And I'm like, I said, "Yeah, I was being, I said, yeah, I appreciate that, but he started tugging on my arm. No, he said he remembers you and everything."
Mm-hmm.
And so Charlie, I walk in, and immediately, you ever walk into a room and somebody knows you, but they don't know you, right? And he's looking at me with this look of familiarity. He was kind of, I'm trying to figure out, like, if this guy's seen a ghost or, and I'm not aware that I look like my father and I have a lot of his mannerisms. I don't know that because I never met him and I have no memory. Mm-hmm. And he's looking, I try to sneak into the room and kind of hide in the back. I didn't want to interrupt his lecture. And he's looking at me, walking across the room. All the kids are looking at me.
Yep.
And I let him finish. And when I walk up to him, and he says, "It's a pleasure to meet Kenny's son." And I said, I said, "I don't want to disappoint you, but that's not true." And he goes, as only Russell would say, he goes, "Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but you are." And I still was back and forth. And finally he says, "Where do you live?" I was living in Boston. I would go to Boston during the weekends. And he said, "Well, give me your address, and I'm going to come see you. And I'm going to bring a picture of him with me. And you'll see." And man, as soon as I saw that picture, like, I knew immediately. And so Russell, he had no idea how important that was to me. And even early on, because there were always questions, right? Did Kenny know about me? I cared. Like, when you walk through the world without an identity, whether or not my father knew about me was like irrelevant. The fact that I knew who he was. Charlie, you want to know why that's so important?
Why is that?
Because my children walk through the world with the last name Pemberton now.
True.
That's what Russell was able to do. And I told him that before his passing. And my three children never have to worry what I had to worry about. Where do I come from? Who do I look like? What am I a part of? They know that. And so there are times when I'll see them kind of coming back from practice, and I'll see, in fact, my son, who's a sophomore at Boston College, he plays basketball at BC, and so he came home and he had his jersey with him, and man, I saw Pemberton on the back, number 20. No words, and I'm supposed to have the words to articulate something like that, right?
Yeah.
And the last thing I say about that is that nobody ever, ever, ever could have imagined that when I was born.
Wow.
Nobody could have ever imagined, given the battle that my mother was having, who had her demons, but she wasn't a bad person. She just had some bad things happen to her that she wasn't equipped to handle. That's true for a lot of people too, by the way.
So true.
Too harshly,
So true. I mean, I hate them. I don't want to always say this to all my guests, but your book's 5 stars, and not that it's definitely something that I couldn't put down. I was like, I even shushed my wife today. She can attest to it. She's on it somewhere. She interrupted the book, and I'm like, shh. Shh. So, so it was good. There was a part in your book that, everything there was definitely just, as of going through the stories, I had this anticipation of trying to figure out who was who. And then as things were going on, I was like, all right, I know who that is. I know who this is. I've known Heather all my life, Mrs. Pope. And when you went to to City Hall. And as soon as you said Charlie, I said Charlie Como.
Yeah.
Instantly. Instantly. And I was, the only reason is because his stories, anything he was telling you, he's told me in my lifetime, a few different stories about whether it's my dad, whether it's my uncle, whether it's my grandmother, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And without even thinking of, any other name, I said it's him.
Right.
And then eventually you say it. But I want to ask you, do you know if his wife has your book?
I do not know, but if she, I actually went to their house, to interview them, to interview Charlie.
Yeah.
And met his wife. But if he wants it, I'll personally, I will personally sign and send one, to her. And Charlie, Charlie was very helpful, to me, because these friends, my father's friends, gave me a very different version of his life, and you could tell how much they loved him.
Yes.
That you could tell they loved him, and it was so important to them that they tell me who he really was.
True.
And because he was failed by some people he cared about, actually, or he thought cared about him, but his friends did not fail him. And that whether that was Charlie, whether that was George Carmo, whether that was Ronnie Tuat, and so George Carmo gave me letters that my father wrote, and only George and I know what's in the content of those letters, and neither of us will tell anybody.
Yes.
But I knew, you could tell. So, what's fascinated me is after the book was written, it's amazing how many people call themselves my father's best friend.
Yes.
But that's not my father said. So I have his words. His words be the real truth, right? But I could tell that the Carmo family to my father was really important to him. Louis Carmo was his closest friend.
Yes, I remember him.
Yeah, they were close, and then when Louis died as tragically, as he did, you can imagine the effect that it had on my father. The other thing I would tell you too is when tragedy strikes a family, because the Pemberton, family endured a lot. They were 13 of them all together, and they weren't wealthy, but they had each other until one day they don't.
Yes.
When a fire displaces them, and then so they're in this turbulent living situation, and then my grandmother dies suddenly, and that really just put all of the children in such an unbelievably difficult place. Some went into foster homes, others with family members, others in juvenile homes. It just literally fractured the family. And they hadn't done anything wrong. They hadn't done anything wrong. They lost their matriarch.
Yes.
Right? That's what happened. They lost their matriarch. And for Kenny, what happened to him, you can imagine this. You and I were 14, 15 years old at a time. Imagine that you wake up one day, and then at the end of that day, your mother's gone. Right? And then the week after that, you're put in a juvenile home, and not because you've done anything wrong, but because society doesn't know what to do with you.
Yes.
And so, here you have a young teenage boy who's just brokenhearted. Wouldn't any of us be brokenhearted? But he's got this magnificent ability, with his hands. The Pembertons, we're all good athletes in some way, shape.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the core of all of that, he's still heartbroken, right? He's still heartbroken. And I don't think it was ever resolved. And so I try to live my life as if this is how his life would have turned out had some things broke a little bit differently for him. And so that's why I'm still, kind of on that mission.
Well, it's it's crazy how my family's kind of intertwined with yours through the generations. It's especially the Pemberton family. You already said it. They were huge. They were a large family,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone knew them.
Still are. Still is.
Yeah, still is. And so, but I wanted this comment says he's very inspiring for all that he's been through, and he's still here to talk about it and help others. I agree.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
During your time at BC, whether it's as a student or and later on as part of the staff, did you ever come across Keithy Francis from New Bedford?
Give me the name again.
Keith Francis.
Oh no, Keith. Knew Keith very, very well. Like really well.
All right.
And he and I would joke. I put Dave Lato kind of in that mix too.
Yes.
Ball coaches, guys from New Bedford, who kind of the different thing. I mean, Keith probably not probably Keith is the greatest track and field athlete that Boston College has ever seen. But Keith also gave so much back to to obviously the New Bedford community and to as well as to Boston College too. I mean, there's a weekend that's named after him because of all the contributions that he made. We lost him way too soon. Way too soon.
Yeah, it was during the time that he was very, very sick. I was trying to get permission to write his story and put in, and he was just couldn't receive any calls. He just too sick, too weak, and I never got that permission to write the book. So I'm not going to, although I have this children's book that I'm writing. It's already written. I just need someone to illustrate it.
Yeah.
And it just talks about him, in the Bay Village and how he's inspirational to me and stuff.
Yeah.
But a very, very small children's story. But I wanted to do his biography. And
I think however you decide to handle that, it matters for the future generations of the Francis family. That's why I think it's generally true for all of us. We've all got to find the elders in our family and get their stories down. You don't have to write a book.
True.
Get their voices down. Let them share their life journeys, their life experiences, because they are so instructive. In mine, I'm writing about my Uncle Greg, who I met later on in life. And, he and I have an incredibly close relationship. In fact, our first child, his full name is Quinn Gregory Pemberton.
Wow.
And so he's another one of the people that I'm writing about in The Lighthouse Effect, how he and I met. Stunningly similar stories. And I think it's important to get those stories down because they do get lost if we don't get them down. You don't need to be an author or a poet or an illustrator, to do that. It's down with the elders who we know have so much wisdom, so much insight and perspective. And you share that with future generations so that when they are facing uncertainty or just need to know, kind of a family history, they have those stories that they can always gravitate back to, especially in a world that struggles to embrace different cultures. There's sometimes all of the mayhem that I see unfolding in the world. A number of times, Charlie, I think, there are parts, not all, but there are parts of the society who keep making it abundantly clear that they just don't love black and brown people. They just don't. And my next thought after that, well, that's okay, because we love us. We love us. And New Bedford is a place that is a reminder of that, right? Because of the history of the community and of the city. And whether you're talking about, Keith Francis or Corey Garcia, or Tara Centeo, who that community sends out into the world and the impact that they have on the world, that's a story unto itself. I know you had Lee Charlton prior to me. I mean, you start stacking all these people up, and after a while you go, this place is different. This place produces leaders. And whether that's and it starts early, whether it's at my old elementary school, Hathaway School, or over at Carnegie Academy, like, this is who New Bedford produces. This is who shows up in all different fields of human endeavor. It's another part of the story to tell, right?
Yes.
That's a rich history.
And that's why I like doing this podcast, because, I'm able to kind of put those people, those heroes and sheroes, to put them here so people can visually see them and listen to them and highlight them. I'm always talking about giving people their flowers while they're standing, and that goes for you too. And maybe the praise is a million times over with you. However, it gets a little bit better when it's coming from the home that you lived at, that homegrown folks that's kind of just giving you that praise, or that you're inspiring them, and thank you. And some things that you have said, I've used for my students, I use for my own family. So I'm going to continue to try to reach out to people and kind of get their story documented. And it may be digital, but that's good. That's good, because this is the day and age. Everything's digital. And I really, so the I'm glad that you did meet Keith. That's my mentor. That was my that was my Mr. Sykes growing up. That was a dude that kind of sat down on the curbside with me and talked to me, trying to get me to go the right path, go the right way. And he was actually he was my hero before Dr. J was my hero, or anybody like that. It was Keithy, and quite a few other guys that were in the Bay Village, And
I can tell you that I still remember those guys. It won't be so quiet after I say it, but I've been supporting Robbie Mendes and the Boys and Girls Club. Robbie's one of those guys. I was never part of Boys and Girls Club, actually. I wasn't allowed to.
Wow.
But man, I would just be struck. I'd love to go in there. A lot of my friends were in the Boys and Girls Club. But think about what Robbie does on a daily basis. Think about what's going on over in Nativity Prep, another school that I support. I support with a small literacy drive the hospital where I was born. So every family that leaves the hospital leaves with a copy of Goodnight Moon, because it brings me back. And so I visited with one of our classmates who actually gave me a tour of the ward where I was born, and she was born in that same ward in but I think about what was unfolding the day I was born, my mother, and the struggle that she was in. Might seem like a small gesture, but a book, just a gift that says that you matter. I see you, and again, not the circumstances, but the possibilities. All of those things do have an impact, and getting the stories down, Charlie, matter, because that's what's needed more now than ever. because we are losing our way. Relentless polarization, people defining themselves by material things primarily. You don't believe that? Write a book and see what comes at you.
True.
Because it comes at you.
Sure does.
And it's because they're just people who don't want to see you successful. They just don't. But that's always a reflection on them. I never thought it was about me. I'm like, yeah, that's not really about me. It's about you. And the real point is to try to impact, as several of the listeners are saying, the point of it all is to impact somebody's life. Like, isn't that what you're really here for? Ultimately, to be a lighthouse to somebody else, because somebody was a lighthouse to you. And how do we know that? Well, because you're here. That's how we know.
Yes.
He was that for you, right? John Sykes and Ruby Darton were that for me. And so there's always this opportunity, it seems, to recognize. Like we both talked about the people that we went to high school with. They didn't know, my classmates at the time, living in such a brutally difficult situation. And what my classmates didn't know is that their normalcy was so important to me. It was amazing to me. I could see normalcy. I could see in them, and I would tell you, still, best people I've ever met. Were growing up there in my classroom. It was healing in a lot of ways, for sure.
Yeah. Sure is. A friend here, Nathan Victor, says, when I saw you start attending the Nazarene Church, the church that I grew up in, I then decided to let you in. Actually, Reverend Gomes demanded that I show you respect. Corey Garcia actually demanded that I do that as well. And you learn from friends, you learn from just take that people. And but guess what? I never seen you in any kind of ill way whatsoever. And your book is, actually show me that you eventually did get angry. You did get upset, and that's in front of the people that you love. And
oh yeah. I had a temper, Charlie, when I was younger. I was not somebody who wanted to cross, and I could fight too, so that didn't help matters. My reaction to a lot of things was to strike first. But for any young people listening, words are far more powerful. They're longer lasting. They have a longer impact. And even now, you get angry. But about different kinds of things, right? Things you get angry about now have to do with things that impact impact others that you care about, others that you love. And you'll have those moments, though, right? But I think if you remember what's your truth, right? What's your truth? You won't be able to please everybody. And in fact, I learned that both sides, right? One particular Pemberton family member has really gone out of his way to be as critical and as vicious as possible. Not everybody in the Murphy family agreed with what I wrote. But in both instances, you didn't live it. I was there. I lived it. Not really for you to judge. I'm not seeking your approval or permission either. So whatever it is that makes you think I needed your approval or permission, you have that wrong. We all deal with that, though, on a daily basis, right? In some way, shape, or form.
True.
And I think the focus always is twofold. One, know that there's lives that you're trying to impact. That matters more. That's the biggest takeaway, to me, of all. And then the other is you knowing what the truth is. And when you know what the truth is, then, those who try to come along and revise it, or in my case, make money off me, or try to, you just realize, but those are two different objectives, right?
Yes.
Impact people's lives here in a positive way. Others who are in foster care, others who wonder who their parents are, who have the lash on their back. It's just a different set of priorities, a different set of objectives. And knowing, as fortunately, as I'm able now to see, it really has, man. The book really has changed people. In the movie, has really changed people's lives. And yet, I always say at the same time, boy, Ruby, John, they I hope they're proud of the work that they did, because I didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's them. Like, I am the reflection of them. Great Greek proverb that says, a society grows great when the elders of that society plant trees in whose shade they know they will never sit. That we plant. People's lives we change, that we don't see how the story turns out. But those who are impacted never forget you. They tell their family about you. And there's a certain kind of joy that's to be found in doing that. So I'm going to stay on that mission for as long as God sees fit for me to do so.
And I hope it's many, many, many more years. If your kids could be equal to you, but we always want them to be better, then you have some other people that are going to inspire thousands of people, because that's what your books are doing. And one of the Facebook listeners says, absolutely 100% inspirational. As foster parents over the years, it's great to see the success and the empowerment created through struggles. Rewarding to know any efforts to help people is what it's about. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Charlie. And thank you for that comment. It's very, very nice. A mutual friend of ours says great proverb. It's David Consatio there.
Yeah. Hey, man.
Yeah. So
parents, I want to point out quickly, foster care in America is a crisis, a humanitarian crisis. Every year, 25 to 30,000 kids age out of the foster care system. They have done nothing wrong. They've committed no crime. Their only crime, which is what you want to call it, that is they're the inheritor of a set of circumstances that they did not ask for and that they did not create.
True.
And yet they have this grit and this determination to be more than what they've come into the world with. And so foster parents are quite literally that guide, that did not turn out that way for me, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean that there aren't great foster parents and there aren't more that are needed. It's not just the life in front of you that you're changing, it's the generations, that come. I look at my 3 children, they are reflections really of investments that were made in me, and it will carry on, with them as I remind them, kind of all the time, like, listen, the stakes are a little bit higher if your last name's Pemberton. Higher. There's a way you're going to walk through this world with a degree of gratitude and love and respect and appreciation. Their mother instills that in them just as much as as I do. And we're not going to talk a lot about Tanya, who I actually met, Charlie, on Martha's Vineyard.
I read about that, and
I almost blew it, man. I almost blew it. I almost blew it, Charlie. I did not. I had met her once before, and I did not recognize her the second time. And it's my bias, right? She is a strikingly beautiful woman, which was the problem, because she comes over to me. She says, "I know you," and it was a fumble. It was a fumble. And I said, "You do." But what I was really thinking was, how does somebody this beautiful know me and I don't know her? That's what I was thinking. But it came out wrong, Charlie. It came out like I was a player. I'm like, like I was on the wall at Monty's Park. Hey, yeah, So she did the most magical thing I say to any young girl listening. And I remember she looked at me like, "Oh, you one of them dudes." And And she says, she puts her hand lightly on my forearm and she says, "I must be mistaken." And she walked away.
Yeah.
She got maybe about like 10 feet away. Now I'm clicking. I'm like, man, I got her. Where did I meet her? Where did I meet her? Where did I meet her?
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden it hits me. I met her a year ago. We had a 5-minute conversation. And so when I walked up to her, tapped her lightly on the shoulder, and I said, "I'm sorry." I said, "I remember you now. We met last year. Your name is Tanya. Your friends called you T. We met right across the street from Mad Martha's ice cream shop. You were standing actually to my left. You're from New Jersey. You're a teacher. And the day we met, your hair was pulled back, which is why I didn't recognize you. But you were also wearing yellow shorts and a blue Parker. When you walked away, you walked to my right."
Mm-hmm.
And you remembered all of that in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I myself, I was like, well, thank God I did.
That's it.
So I recovered it. But then her friends, because she was there with all her girlfriends, so Charlie, they did not like the fact that every time they were somewhere, I was somewhere. Because I knew she was the one. So I'm like,
yeah.
I was thinking to myself, no, I can't let her get away. Can't let her get away. And at one point, her friends said to her, "So, you spend all your time talking to this guy and you don't even know his last name." And as only, it's probably somebody from New Bedford would do.
Yeah.
I said, "Tell your friends that my last name is Pemberton. And one day that's going to be your name too."
Awesome. Love it.
We were married less than a year after that. And I still to this day will say that's the greatest line in the history of dating. That's my story. And that's the one I'm sticking to.
Actually, she was your sidekick when you seen the Murphys, your family, and
yes,
gotta give her a high five on that because
a woman's grace.
Now you think about it, at that point, at that meeting, could you imagine if she wasn't there?
I mean, I was so angry.
Yep.
It's hard to describe. My Uncle Greg would understand this more than anybody else, actually.
Mm-hmm.
That when you grow up not knowing where you come from, what's your identity, who you're a part of, what you belong to, and you discover it. And here I am finding myself in a conversation about whether my father knew about me, as if that mattered. Or a conversation about race and whether I was black or white with my mother's family.
Mm-hmm.
And it angered me because I'm like, I've been lost in the wilderness for over 20 years trying to find you. I have no interest in those things, because there are some things that are greater than race. Family is one of them.
Exactly.
And so I think I was prepared at that point to say, I'm just kind of done with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done with all of you.
Yeah.
But she was the one who, a woman's grace, and was, kind of quieted me down, a little bit, and just
mm-hmm.
said, there's a fuller story here.
Yeah.
And some of the people I'm writing about in the Lighthouse Effect, made that point to me too. Because I do think you can develop a hard edge when you grow up in a turbulent foster care situation, wondering who's going to fail you next, who you have to be on guard with, and so she softened my edges is how I'll put it. And now,
Yeah.
in our house, Charlie, I'd say she has the harder edge as moms do.
Good. Yeah.
Mama Bear shows up and everybody clears out.
Mm-hmm. I love it. She you got a first round draft pick. No trade clause. Make sure. All right.
Yeah, punching above the weight for sure.
Steve, I definitely I love doing this. Just your story alone is definitely inspired me with a bunch of other things in my life, but I also know that you're inspiring, like I said, thousands and thousands of people. And New Bedford's proud of you. Your family's proud of you. And you continue to do what you're doing, which I know you will. I definitely know you will. And please don't. You want to come back on air anytime? Please, send me a message. Talk about anything. Talk about the lighthouse effect. Anything, anything. This
Well,
is your
count me in. Count me in. I'll be back for the lighthouse effect, and then some. Again, man, I'm equally proud of you.
Thank you.
Well, again, I've watched your commitment and your compassion over the years. We don't catch up, but you don't need to, right? Because you can kind of watch your friend from a distance. I've talked to him every week. You just kind of know, just an understanding of, that's a good man there. And that in my book, Charlie, is the highest compliment that can ever exist, is when you call somebody a good man. And you are certainly a good man. I'm glad to see the podcast is doing well. I can see a ton of comments. Thanks for the selflessness, for being a lighthouse yourself by shining the light on others, which is exactly what you're doing. I don't think that's lost on anybody either. So, however I can help, next time I come on, I'll invite folks in my kind of have a lot of followers across the world. So I'll invite them in and get a little taste of New Bedford. A lot of people come to know a little bit about New Bedford because of how I've written about, which I take a lot of pride. In as well.
I appreciate that. We appreciate that. It I definitely want to say that you're a good man. You're a good man with this story that is it's a classroom. Your book is a classroom, and to me, you're in front of the class. Mr. Sykes is in front of the class.
Mm-hmm.
Ruby Darton's in front of the class, and they're teaching, they're learning, they're teaching, and I'm proud of you. I can't even. What else can I say? There's not enough words for you, and we're definitely going to do this again, only because I need you, brother. I need you in this world. I need you on my podcast, and we'll go from there. We mentioned some of your friends, our friends, that in the future will be coming on this podcast. Mm-hmm. And I talked to all my guests. Who would you like to see on a Really Charlie podcast?
Well, ironically, Tara Centello would be great for you to have as well. I mean, she is, and I will connect you to her if you need to be.
Sure.
Another wonderful, success story. I'm sure you're getting around to any member of the Tavares family, but they were in quiet ways. They were impactful to me too. I think that kind of that history matters.
Yes.
As well. And then I think I would also humbly suggest having some of the younger generation on as well, because there's a lot of young people in New Bedford who I'm following from a distance, who I think would be fantastic guests as well. Robbie Mendes, you should absolutely have on.
He was on a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, so you're ahead of me on that one. Yeah, I'm sure he didn't tell you the story though, how he used to kick us off the court at Brentwood Park. Though I'm pretty sure he didn't tell you that story.
Oh, I'm gonna have to hear that story.
But I was telling somebody the other day, because us younger guys, we would go to Brentwood Park, and then the older guys, Robbie would be one of them. A lot of guys, Bobby Duart, all the guys who were older than us who could play. And one day we were all like, "We're not leaving the court. We're not leaving the court." And Robbie got to the court first, right? And so we were all swelling up, all 13, 14, whatever age we were. We bonded together, so we're not leaving the court, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get to the court, and we announced to Robbie, who we knew and respected, we're not leaving the court today. And he said, it's only Robbie could say, never not raising his voice. Yeah, well, you're gonna leave the court, But what he said actually that I still remembered, and I was telling somebody the other day. But what he said to us, we were all gathered around, and he said, "I guess you're gonna have to get so good that we'll have no choice but to keep you on the court."
Mm-hmm.
And think about how wise and instructive that is, right? In this entitlement generation, you're going to be guaranteed things. And Rob was saying, you want to stay on the court, get good enough to stay on the court, right? Exactly. That's true for writing. That's true for business. I'm a businessman. That's what I do day to day. I'm a writer, I'm a businessman day to day. That's true. That lesson is applicable in all parts of life. So I think Tyson Rose is another. It would be great to have Dale Burgo. As well would be I mean, I could keep going, man, but I'm sure we'll get to all these legends at some point eventually.
I sure will. I'm actually, there are a lot of those people that you mentioned are my dear friends, so I will be reaching out to them, messaging them, text messaging them, and getting them on the show within April or May. And definitely want to get them on there.
Yeah, sounds good, Joe.
Especially, let's see, Steve, feel free to go back on this podcast, on the StreamYard Facebook, and some comments there we didn't all address, but if you feel free to answer them later on. The video will definitely be on YouTube within the next hour. It's live now. It's live now. And I'll have it on Anchor and Spotify within the next hour. So it's just something, if you needed it, it's definitely there for you.
Yep, sounds good, Charlie. Again, man, thank you so much for having me. Hello to all of the folks who have joined us this evening. I look forward to to being back real soon.
Love you, brother.
Love you too, man.
Take care. All right.
God bless.
God bless. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Amazing. Definitely a good man, as he likes to, say about others. That's a good man. That's a good man. Very strong man. Survived his life and now is living his life with the family that he's very, very proud of. And I know they're very, very proud of him. That was Stephen Pemberton, author of A Chance in the World, the Lighthouse Effect, and he also has a children's version of A Chance in the World. Please support him. All his books are on Amazon. The Lighthouse Effect will come out in the fall, but you can pre-order it, and that way when it comes out, you'll get yours firsthand. Book is amazing. A Chance in the World is also on, you can get it on Audible and listen to it. But I'm proud. I'm very proud of Stephen Pemberton. Very, very proud of him. My classmate, and continue to support him like you guys do to me. You support me every podcast. I appreciate it. I really do. These comments mean a lot to me, and keep having them. Keep giving me comments. Keep giving me suggestions and ideas. It means a lot. Tomorrow we're going to have Danielle Filkins. She talks about, her dreams from Cape Cod to California and how she was able to live a dream, still living it. Please tune in. And actually, Friday we have Dr. Selena Belmars-Pina. That'll be on Friday night. And on Saturday, we also have Russell Ramus. or he talks about his acting and everything that he was involved in. So, in conclusion, mask those beautiful faces, hand sanitize, wash your hands, stay safe, everyone, and actually inspire someone else. Be happy. Be that lighthouse that Steve Pemberton talked about. Be that lighthouse for someone else. Awesome. Awesome podcast. God bless. See y'all tomorrow. Take care.